Welcome to Techstination. Joining us today from Brompton, USA is VP of Marketing, Peter Yuskauskas. I think I'm saying that right. How are you, Peter?
You are correct. Very good, very good. Great to be here with you. It's a lovely, rainy New York day, so I'm happy to be inside talking to you.
Well, tell us a little background before we get started on some of the cool stuff we can already see behind you. A little background about Brompton, very interesting bike company.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brompton is really unique in the bike world because it is, first of all, it's made in London, and it's been made in London since 1975. So it's one of the few bikes that's not made in somewhere in Asia. Not to say that bikes made in Asia are bad. There's so many fantastic bikes out there, but that's one thing that's unique about Brompton. And our heritage stretches back to 1975. So about 45 years ago, Andrew Ritchie was an industrial designer designing industrial machines and heavy equipment. He had a little gardening business for a moment, and then he decided what he really wanted to do was apply his engineering knowledge to solving a problem. And that problem was, how do you get people from outside of London into the city on the tube so that they can utilize that public transport element, but then have the freedom of being able to move independently and separate of a car once they're in the city? Because we all know the first mile, last mile is the main thing that is preventing people from using public transit often to connect all these different dots. So what he wanted to do was create the bicycle that would be the perfect solution for urban commuters. And so the Brompton bike was born. The original one, I've actually got it right here. If you don't mind me stepping off camera and bringing it over here for a second.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just grab it. So it's obviously not the original Brompton, but this is, I think, number 40 off the production line. And I'll bring it a little closer. You can see it's a little bit different, but broadly the same. And so the big innovation that Brompton sort of has built upon over the last 40 years is the way that it folds into 3 parts rather than folding in half. So there was a number of different folding bikes out there at that time, but all of them relied on this fold in half kind of mechanism. And so by kind of breaking that concept and stepping away from that to go to fold into 3 parts, the Brompton's able to fold about 40% smaller than regular folding bikes, like say 20-inch wheel folding bikes that fold in half. And that makes them about 80% smaller than a full-size bike that you may have stored in your home or in your apartment or in your office. So that's a little bit about Brompton. They're still handmade in London.
And I guess that's kind of half of the equation, because you can fold it down, but then you've got the issue of, okay, how heavy is it?
Sure. Well, I'll grab one of our little red demo bikes here. And the first thing to show you about the fold is you can carry this with one hand, with a certain degree of strength, right? So the bike weighs between 21 and probably 26 pounds for the standard model, depending on how you configure it. And I say configure it because it's essentially all the same folding frame. They all fold in the same way. They just have different options that set them apart from one another. So every Brompton folds in the same manner that I've just showed you now. Can you see it okay? Should I tilt the camera down?
I can. It looks terrific.
So every Brompton folds in the same way. And the fold in third is the rear wheel has a little latch to release it, and then that flips under. Now it's parked like a kickstand. Then the front wheel comes around like this. The seat handlebar goes down. The seat goes down, and now it can actually roll like a little shopping cart almost when it's partly folded. And I'll show you more about that with the Brompton Electric in a moment. The last part is the handlebar flips down, and now you can pick it up. Now the seat post is going through the frame, which locks it together. So again, about carrying, no matter where you're going, if you're in a rush, if you're kind of in an awkward move, reaching it up into your car, even if you're putting it in the overhead bin of an airplane. And I've traveled to several countries around the world with this, and there's a whole cult of people who travel with Brompton as well. The bike's never going to come unfolded on you because it's mechanically locked together, not with magnets. So that's another really nice element of that design. And as you can see, it balances pretty nice right there.
And you mentioned e-bikes, Peter, so let's get into that.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, one of the hot categories today.
Well, so we have been excited for an e-bike for years. It's something that felt like a natural evolution for Brompton, a company where we're trying to make a solution for urban commuters, right? So an e-bike allows people who would never consider themselves to be able to bike commute daily to have access to this. And so the Brompton Electric, that's what we have here. And there's a couple things that are special about Brompton, I really am proud of. I'm proud to work here just because of this, right? So it's not that we have this cool bike and we just slapped on a Bosch motor or a Yamaha drive system. You know, all of those, again, great motor systems, but were they the right application for the Brompton, and are they the right application for our urban commuter bike, right? We didn't think so. What we wanted to do was take the same approach that we had with the folding bike and look at designing something specifically purpose-built for that frame. So what we have is we have a front hub motor. It's a 250 watt geared motor, but it's got a freewheel mechanism in it. And what I mean by that is if you see when I spin this backwards, and I'm going to come pretty close to you, when I spin this backwards, it kind of has a bunch of resistance, right? It kind of slows itself right down. And that's pretty typical of geared hub motors, right? They have to have high torque, which is where the gears come in to engage them, but they kind of slow you down a little bit. So what we did is we built in a freewheel so that when you spin it forward, it just kind of keeps going and going and going. It actually feels like a really great cartridge bearing wheel when you do that. So the motor, again, designed specifically to fit the dimensions of the bike so that it doesn't fold any larger than a standard Brompton. It's 250 watts and it's geared, and 250, if you're just comparing specs on paper, might seem like, hey, that's not such a high torque motor. Is this going to be able to get me up hills? An important thing to remember, and a great advantage that we had starting with Brompton, is the small wheels are naturally more torquey than a large wheel. So it takes less power to give you the same acceleration on a small wheel. And it's the same principle as shifting down into your easier gears. A smaller wheel is naturally going to spin up faster and give you more torque, just as if you're shifting into a smaller gear. So this motor, again, was designed specifically for that, takes advantage of the small wheel. And because it's only 250 watts, it allows us to use a lower power battery pack. It has fewer copper windings, and both of those things make the bike lighter weight. And this is one of the primary things that we felt was super important for a commuter bike, because you don't want to be carrying your 75-pound e-bike up the stairs to your apartment. You want to be carrying your 30-pound e-bike and then 6-pound battery. They disconnect so that you can carry one here. This actually rests really nice on my shoulder. There's a shoulder pad. And the battery pack has a little strap. And you can toss that strap over your shoulder. And now you're able to open doors. You're able to turn around in stairways or in hallways. And what you have is a bike that not only is easy to ride, but is also easy to bring inside with you. And anyone who's ever tried to ride a bike in a city or uses a bike in a city knows, like, it doesn't matter how easy it is to get there. If you're worried about locking it up outside, if you're worried about will it be able to fit in my apartment or in my office, if you're worried that people are going to look at you funny when you're coming in the elevator, those are all things that will discourage you from riding even the nicest bike around. So what we wanted to do with Brompton Electric is build on the convenience of the Brompton, but make it really easy and accessible, not just with the electric motor, but with all these points of design that are specific, to the Brompton Electric bike. I'm rattling on a lot here, so jump in and interrupt me if you need to.
Well, I was gonna ask you a couple things that people would want to know. Obviously, what the range would be of
Sure.
one of these, and how long it takes to charge up the battery. And I guess you could add a second one if you wanted to too.
You sure could. I mean, so let's just answer them in order. So the range of the bike is 20 to 40 miles on a charge. And of course, that's weight dependent, weather, etc. People who watch your channel will know there's difference in the performance of a bike depending on who's riding it and how they're riding it, right? I can tell you anecdotally, I've taken this bike out to Monterey, California, and to San Francisco, and I've really put it through a bunch of different interesting tests. So, riding from Monterey, California, up through the mountains into the Laguna Seca racecourse is about a 1,700-foot elevation ride, 25 miles. I went from 5 bars on the battery, which is full, down to 3 bars on the battery, which is, still pretty darn good. The bike still had the torque. It was able to climb the hills. No worries. Again, in San Francisco, not an easy place to ride an e-bike. The Brompton Electric, I'll tell you, there's going to be more powerful bikes up there that'll get you up those hills faster, but it didn't have any issues with, I would say, 99% of the hills. You could go find the steepest one and you'll struggle a bit. But on to your questions. 20 to 40 miles on a charge. It takes 4 hours to charge it completely, but you can get an 80% charge in 2 hours, right? The The speed on the bike is 15.5 miles per hour. So that really has to do with, again, making this a lightweight bike. The more power you're using to go fast, the more battery you have to back that up, the more wattage you kind of need to put behind it. And then there's some physical limitations of how small you can make the motor to deliver kind of the optimum mix of all those characteristics. So 15.5, right? Again, spec comparison, it's not the fastest bike out there, but it's the bike that's designed to do this. Take it inside with you, no problem. Lightweight, easy to use. So 15.5, you know, it's much, not much, but it's 3 miles per hour faster than about your average city rider would be doing, mostly about 12 miles per hour.
And does it fold up the same way?
It sure does. I'm glad you asked. I love folding. Rear wheel comes under, the front wheel comes around, and you saw that bag actually came around with it, right? So before I fully fold it, let me show you, you can actually have a larger bag to put all of your different stuff in it. And what I love to do with this is you can actually roll it in and out of stores. You can have the top open, and let's say you wanted to come to the Brompton store and buy another battery pack. You can toss that in there, do your other shopping, whatever, rolling it around like a little cart. And when you're ready to go, it just flips right around to the front just like that. Now, obviously it takes practice, and I've been doing this a long time, but I can tell you anyone who comes into our store will leave knowing how to fold this bike in about 20 seconds. And with a little bit of practice, you certainly can get it down. I'm not even the fastest person to do it. So it's quite simple.
Really cool. So tell me what your thoughts are about the type of consumer who's buying one of these today. I guess there are a couple of different categories where e-bikes have become very popular.
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you, I used to work at a bike store that sold online. They're no longer open, but at the time they were one of the largest electric and folding bike retailers. And I really saw the evolution of that kind of folding electric and just the electric bike category generally. And I'll tell you, anyone who wants to ride more often and kind of like make a bike more part of their life, an electric bike is for you, hands down. So, you know, whether it's Brompton Electric or another brand, you're in the right spot. You're thinking about the right thing, because an electric bike is going to enable you to not worry about getting out and going for a ride. You don't have to be, you don't have to have injuries. You don't have to be older. You know, I would ride this bike daily if I had one. It's just so much more fun to get on the bike knowing you can do 20 miles and not have a sweat. You could come around and do the same thing again. You could customize the power modes. It doesn't have to be high power. It can be lower power. You could still get exercise. So first of all, an e-bike is for anyone. Why a Brompton?
So the perception that you're not going to get the benefits of cycling, the workout, if you buy an e-bike, that's not really valid.
It's very common to think that, and it's something we get all the time. Is it cheating? You know, am I going to get any exercise? And the answer is that there have actually been studies in European cities that people who ride electric bikes do more miles and burn more calories because they're riding more often than the average person who doesn't ride an e-bike. Now, you're not talking about your road racers or your hardcore mountain bikers that are really going out for those exercise rides, but everyday folks who just need to get around, they end up riding their electric bike so much more that they end up actually burning more calories and being more active overall. That's of course your choice when you start out to do the bike riding, but I think it all comes down to the fact that it's more convenient and more fun to ride this bike more often is going to make you ride it more often. And we all need that extra motivation. Now, why a Brompton? I mean, I think this speaks for itself here. The fact that I could walk into a building with, say, either, you know, rolling the bike behind me through the main door and having the bag in my hand or over my shoulder. The fact that I never have to worry about leaving it outside. I don't have to have a $250 lock, you know, which I have for my other bikes, but not for my Brompton, you know, because I can just take it inside and set it right there, you know. And this fits next to your chair, under your desk, in the coat closet, in restaurants. You can really bring the Brompton pretty much anywhere. And so I think for someone who lives in a place where theft is a concern, the Brompton's perfect for that. Another place, we often talk about cities, but I think with Brompton Electric, we have a much wider appeal, right? Because it's not necessarily just this utilitarian thing for cities. It's like, hey, I live in a beautiful suburb. I live on the top of a hill, and the nearest park that has a beautiful lake and a path around the lake is 30 miles away. But I've got my car and I've got my Brompton electric. So I'm going to open the trunk, put the Brompton in, close the trunk, drive the car to the nice park, unfold and go. And what do you save there? You save the hassle of figuring out how to put that hitch rack on, and am I going to get it in? And oh, it's so heavy. And oh, where even is it in the garage anyway? I don't even know, right? With a Brompton, you just put it in your car and go. There's really no worries about thinking about should you take this bike out or not. And that again, it comes to the compact size, it comes to the convenience, and the simplicity of the fold. The other thing I would say is, like, it's often enticing to talk about who should ride your product, but you could also talk about who wouldn't be satisfied and think about, are you not this person? Because I think many people aren't this person I'll describe. So the person who probably wouldn't love a Brompton electric is someone who's looking for something that goes super duper fast to like replace their car to do 40 miles per hour down the highway or something, or the person who's looking to do, like, I don't know, mountain bike paths and things that really require super high power motors, long range batteries, like beefy suspension. This is not a bike for that. This is a bike for every person who thinks, like, I would love to be able to get around on a bicycle. I'm worried about theft. I'm worried about being able to do things other than ride. Like, I want some practical features. Like, I want to be able to carry stuff with me. And I want to be able to take it with me wherever I go. When you're that mentality, if you want a bike to get around and you want a bike that's relaxed and fun and comfortable and just plain works and with no worries, then the Brompton is kind of perfect for you. And it's really been engineered with that person in mind.
And there's another person too. I think there are a lot of people who have trouble getting on and off a bicycle that's up high, and they just have difficulty with that. And with and with your bike, the Brompton, it's not an issue, is it? And that seat is adjustable too, I assume. The height.
It is, yeah. The seat's fully adjustable for riders from 5'4" up to, even we have people who are like 6'4", a couple inches taller than me. The handlebar is also adjustable. On this model that you're looking at, you have a H handlebar. We love these little codes with Brompton. So this is an H handlebar, which means a high handlebar, right? It's higher than the other ones. H, and then you have M for medium, and you have S for sporty. So there's 2 inches of difference from H to M to S. And the M and the H are the most popular, again, because it's a comfortable riding bike. Not to say that, like, if you're not interested in Brompton electric and you want a fast, fun folding bike, that S-type standard Brompton is also super, super fun. But yeah, this is the H-type, and I'm 6 feet tall. I'm sitting on this now. The seat would probably normally be slightly higher for me, but you can get the idea of my body position. My posture is upright, comfortable, facing forward, not down on the ground, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us what the impact of the pandemic has been. I understand that these can be in short supply today. They can.
As you can see behind me, we currently have a nice selection of bikes here at the store. Unlike other manufacturers that had disruptions in their Asian production lines because COVID hit there much earlier, and because there's so many different companies producing at these same factories often, right? We were continuously able, although at reduced capacity, to produce our Brompton throughout the entire period. The other thing is, we were already kind of on the lookout for Brexit. We already had stockpiled like a ton of materials. So we had the Brexit stockpile. We had a later sort of impact of COVID at a smaller scale because we are a smaller operation than any of these other factories. And so we are able to continuously ship our product around the world. However, we're seeing like 2 to 3 times the typical demand that we usually do. So I think the silver lining around cycling from all of this and for sort of people's awareness of their environment is, you don't have to take the subway to get around New York or London or Paris or San Francisco, or, I mean, even we have huge ridership in LA. Sometimes I look at the stats and I'm like, LA is car town. Why is LA like one of our biggest markets? People love bikes.
Tell us what pricing starts, Peter.
Okay, pricing. Yes, take me back to earth. So pricing is 1,500 to probably 2,600 for your standard core Brompton. It has everything to do with not the handlebar or the seat; those are fully customizable. So you start by picking out how do you want to fit on the bike. Do you want to be sporty or upright? Right? There's no charge for that. You have lots of different color choices. Again, as you can see me, it's like a rainbow behind me. But what it comes down to is your gearing selection. So you can have fewer gears, which are cheaper and lighter, or more gears, which are more set up for hills or multiple different types of terrain, longer distances. You can also choose things like whether you have fenders on here, or you can get a rack as well. I don't have one out here to show you, but you can imagine there'd be a rack on the back here. You can also
How would
get
that impact the folding capability?
well, let's see. Do I have a bike with a rack? Yes, I do. Let's put this back up, and I'll just grab a bike with a rack. It has so much less to do with your ability to carry stuff than it does the rolling function. And I'm just going to roll this bike right into the frame to illustrate this to you, right? So I'm barely touching it, and it just rolls right along. And that's because there's 4 little wheels on the bottom here, rather than the 3 wheels that you get with a fender setup. So these 4 wheels act as a little trolley, allowing you to roll the bike with super duper ease. So especially when you're in that shopping cart mode, you know, it really becomes this very stable platform on which you can do that. So I'll tell you, my personal bike is set up just like this. It has the rack. It has actually a medium type handlebar. And because that rack is on the ground when it's folded, it's not super useful for carrying stuff over your typical shorter distances. Mostly you would use, you know, one of our front bags for that, right? But what you can do, and what I have done, and if I'll dig it up in time, I'll send you, I have this beautiful photo from a trip that I did to Mexico where we actually folded the bikes, took them as carry-on, and then we rode from Cancun airport down to Tulum. And I had a frame backpack on the back here, and then I had the bag in the front. And you're able to do touring on these bikes even when you load it up like that. So for longer distances, you can carry stuff on the back here. But for shorter distances, because most of the time in the city you're going to fold it, you want to put your stuff up in the front, and it's more about having that trolley mode where you kind of roll it back and forth.
Where does e-bike pricing start?
E-bike pricing, it's from $34.99 to $3,700, and I only laugh because the other day in a press presentation I just couldn't remember this off the top of my head, but $34.99 to $3,700, and essentially what you're paying for there is the difference between having a 2-speed setup with 2 gears in the back, or a 6-speed setup with 6 gears in the back. Honestly, my personal preference is the 2-speed because it's a little bit lighter. It's a little less expensive, but it's definitely lighter because you don't have that 6-speed setup. So it actually balances really nicely from the middle. So not to say that you shouldn't go for a 6 if you think you have like a really hilly situation, like say San Francisco, but even when I was in San Francisco, I rode the 2-speed and it was just kind of fine. Maybe I'm a stronger rider, but yeah, so that's the difference. And you can get the 2 different handlebars, the medium or the high, and it comes in a few different colors. It comes in this nice Bolt blue, which is sort of a shiny, clear blue finish, a little more expensive, or it comes in black or a turquoise. And we do have a white color that's actually going away. So if you really like the white, try to get one soon because there won't be any white anymore.
So the 2-speed maybe, and put the difference in price towards a second battery perhaps or something.
Yeah, or a shiny blue finish.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm currently standing in our New York store, which is on the corner of Bleecker Street and 7th Avenue. However, we have 130 different bike shops around the country that sell Bromptons. A smaller number of them sell Brompton Electric. So there's usually only 1 or 2 different bike shops in each kind of major metro market that sell Brompton Electric. But if you type in Brompton Bicycle, find a store, I'm sure you'll find yourself on our dealer locator where you can enter your zip code. And if there's a little lightning bolt next to the dealer in your area, that means that they sell Brompton Electric, and you can call them, and they have test ride models, and they'd love to speak to you more.
And give us that website again.
Okay, you would go to US for United States, us.brompton.com.
And it's BROMPTON.
BROMPTON.com.
Peter Yuskauskas, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Thank you. My pleasure, and have a great day.
Cooking with the power of the sun. Hi, I'm Fred Fishkin, here to tell you about the latest innovation from my friend Patrick Sherwin and his great team at GoSun Stove. The GoSun Fusion has arrived using the company's tried and true reflectors and a solar vacuum tube to get you cooking without the mess of charcoal, heavy propane tanks, or smoke. A really bright idea. And with an optional solar panel and battery storage and the ability to plug in at home or on the road, you really can use the GoSun Fusion to cook anytime and anywhere, day or night, rain or shine. I love what Patrick and his team are doing, and so will you. Want to learn more? Head to gosun.co to check out all of the company's products and innovations, and use the code Techstination to save 10%. That's gosun.co.